everybody can pause themselves, mute themselves at their end, and only. So if you are by phone, Suraj, you can do it by dialing #6, I think. And then professor will be unmuted, and if in between we want questions, you can just unmute and
I think it is *6. If
okay,
#6 doesn't work, yeah, *6. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, first of all, namaskar, and thank you for coming. Joining to study Tattva Bodha is it's a great pleasure. I think you will, as you go through the experience, you will realize how valuable and profound the teachings of the ancient rishis are. In order to start Tattva Bodha, let's close our eyes and start with a short prayer that acknowledges that we wish to study, and we're seeking the blessings of Ishvara in order to do that. Okay. Please close your eyes and repeat after me. You don't have to go off of mute. Sahanavavatu sahanau bhunaktu sahaviryam karavavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The next prayer goes out to our teachers. Sada Shiva Samarambham Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam. And the last prayer goes out to the author of Tattva Bodha, who himself offers a prayer so that the book may be a source of knowledge and it may be a source of joy to students and teachers alike. Vasudevendra Yogindram Vasudevendra Yogindram Natva Jnanapradam Gurum Natva Jnanapradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitathaya Mumukshunam Hitathaya Tattva Bodho Bhidiyate Tattva Bodho Bhidiyate. So we are studying Tattva Bodha, and if you can see my desktop as well. Do you see only my video, or do you see the desktop as well? Akshay, you can let me know.
We see the desktop.
You can see the screen also, Professor.
Okay, good. So what I have here, and we have gone through numerous translations of Tattva Bodha. This is one of the PDF copies that I shared with you maybe 2-3 classes back. I really liked the way they had it written in a translation in Hindi and in English. In fact, I remember we did one class entirely in Hindi, which was great pleasure. It was a lot of fun to do. If you look at the first verse here, the Mangalacharan, we have just recited that prayer from the Tattva Bodha itself. And we have, I think, finished up to verse number or topic number 13. So, for example, this starts off with, let me look at the, so the way we have it right now, there are like 5 parts to Tattva Bodha. There is the Adhikaritvam, which is the preparation needed for Tattva Bodha. Atma Tattva Viveka, this is really knowledge of Atma and Tattva. Then we have Jagat Karanam, which is from topic number 3. Topic number 4 will be Jiva Brahma Aikyam, and then finally Jivan Mukta. Right now we are in Atma Tattva Viveka. We are about to go into Jagat Utpatti or creation of the world, but that will come a little bit later. Those are the 5 major chapters, so to speak. And anytime you study Vedanta, those 5 topics will be very important. And then the first topic is really Adhikaritvam. Adhikaritvam, Adhikari in Hindi means right. But in the context of the Tattva Bodha, we're not talking about right. We're talking about preparation, because along with right comes preparation. So you have to have the adequate preparation to be able to understand Tattva Bodha. Of course, this book is very, Tattva Bodha is a very valuable Prakarana Grantha. It means that it's not really an Upanishad, it's not really a part of the Veda like the Upanishads. It's actually a Prakarana Grantha, which means that it talks about Atma and Brahman, and it is based on the Upanishad. So it's one of those additional texts that have been written and have gained a lot of value over the years because Bhashya has been provided on it and so on. With any topic that is related to the study of Atma, there is the first thing that we will talk about is usually Adhikaritva. And this particular Tattva Bodha is in the form of a dialogue between a student and teacher. And the student is quite persistent. The student keeps asking questions and the teacher keeps giving answers. And what it also, one of the reasons why Tattva Bodha is so liked is because it's like a glossary book. It covers some of the technical terms that we use in the study of Tattva Bodha. So it's quite a book of definitions, if you could say, or it's a book of glossary that is a great introduction to the topic of Atma and Tattva and Viveka. What is the meaning of Viveka? Viveka is being able to discriminate between 2 things, one that is real and one that is unreal. Being able to discriminate between 2 things is called Viveka. It's not the pejorative meaning of the word discriminate. It is to be able to distinguish the real from the unreal. That is Viveka. And Tattva is, of course, reality. So Tattva Viveka is being able to distinguish between what is real and what is not real. So this, of course, begs the question, what is the definition of the word real? And that's what we're talking about. That's what Tattva Bodha is about, what is real. But I do want to indicate that the translation real does not quite capture the essence of Tattva, because the English word real automatically brings to your mind the opposite. That's one thing about words, is that in order to clearly understand something, you need to understand its opposite. That's sort of the way language works. So when I say real, you actually sort of need an unreal to understand fully what is the meaning of the word real. So sometimes we understand things from their opposite, and sometimes we understand things from their positive. But together, the meaning becomes very clear. But the problem with the word real and its translation of tattva as real is that the word unreal does not translate as Maya. So Maya does not translate as unreal. So the word real does not quite capture the essence of tattva, because it comes with the other side. The other face of the word real is unreal. And that unreal has so many meanings in our context. We can talk about illusions, we can talk about hallucinations. That's not what is meant by the word unreal. That is not what is meant by the word Maya. I want to be very clear about that. And that's why when I translate tattva as knowledge of reality, the word falls short. The word falls short because real does not capture the essence of Tattva. And it does not because the meaning of the word unreal does not apply to Maya. Because what is the other side of Tattva, the other side of Brahman, is Maya. And we have talked about the definition of Maya. We talked about it perhaps in the second class itself. We talked about the definition of Maya. And what did we say? I think most of you will remember. That which depends upon something else for its existence and for its definition is Maya. If it depends on something else for its definition, then it falls in the category of Maya or Mithya. It falls in the category of Mithya. That's our definition of Mithya. So, in order to understand Brahma, we have to understand Mithya. Just like in order to understand real, we need to understand what is unreal. But Brahman cannot be translated as real because Mithya cannot be translated as unreal. Because the definition of unreal does not match the definition of Mithya. Because the definition of Mithya is that which depends upon something else for its existence or for its definition is Mithya. That means Mithya is not an illusion. That does not mean that Mithya is something imaginary. What do I exactly mean by that? We've talked about this in previous classes, and we'll talk about it a little bit later as well. So Adhikaritvam is the first topic, and this is Tattva Bodha is a text that relies upon questions and answers in order to unfold the meanings of Vedanta. The student is very persistent and they will ask a lot of questions, and in the process a lot of technical terms will get defined. So when we talk about Adhikaritvam, the teacher opens by saying that Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampanna, that there are eightfold or fourfold Sadhana Chatushtaya that have to be the qualities of the student who's Adhikari. Adhikari for what? Moksha Sadhana Bhutam, in order for moksha. So of course the student immediately asks, Sadhana Chatushtaya Kim? What is Sadhana Chatushtaya? And then the teacher answers that it is Nitya, Anitya, Vastu, Viveka. That's the first. There are four, remember? Nitya, Anitya, Vastu, Viveka. The second is Iham Uttrartha, Phalabhoga Viragaha. The third one is Sham Adi Ashtak Sampattihi. And fourth one is Mokshatvam. So the first one is actually what we just talked about. Nitya, Anitya, Vastu, Viveka. The ability to discriminate between that which is Nitya and that which is Anitya. Oh, so what is the meaning of the word Nitya in this case? In this case, we're talking about that which is bound by time, and Anitya is the one that is not bound by time. And the one that is bound by time is Mithya, and the one that is not bound by time is Brahman. So the first quality of a mumukshu, of a adhikari, is the ability to distinguish between Nitya and Anitya. And then says, oh, wait a minute, this becomes a catch-22. I was studying Tattva Bodha to understand Nitya, Anitya, Vastu, Viveka. And yes, we talked about the fact that in order to get the fire going, you need to light the fire on one part of the wood, and that will dry out the rest of the wood. So yes, it is a little bit circular. As Nitya, Nitya, Vastu, Viveka becomes clearer, Adhikaritvam will keep increasing. The second one is Iham Uttrartha Phalabhoga Viraga. Iham means here, Uttrartha is later, Phala is the results of actions, Bhoga is the ability to enjoy them, and Viraga means a sort of indifference, not quite indifference, but an understanding of what those phalas are. See, I don't want to suggest that you want to become dispassionate, because passion is what makes your life moves forward. The more passionate you are, the harder you work, the closer you get to your goal. Viraga does not mean dispassionate to your goals in life. It means an understanding of what is important and what is not. It is putting the experience within the context of knowledge. Yes, it's a great experience when I consume something that I really like. It's a great experience. But do I really have to repeat it every day? So that viraga is the ability to say, yes, I know that this is a very pleasurable experience and I like it very much, but I don't need to repeat it because the experience is exactly the same as it repeats itself again and again and again. So there is a level of understanding of the experiences that allows you to say, this is great, but this is not exactly my goal. So iham uttrartha phalabhoga viraga. So a viraga, an understanding of phalabhoga, is to be able to place it within perspective. Then the third requirement was sham adi ashtak sampatti. So these are 8 more qualities, and these are sham adi, and the student will ask, what is sham adi ashtak sampatti? And the teacher will point out. But the most important qualification is mumukshutvam. What is mumukshutvam? Mumukshutvam is the desire to be jivan mukta. That's really what it is. Mumukshutvam is a desire for freedom in this life. Freedom from what? Freedom from what was the question we asked in class number 2, because I don't feel bound. So we investigated that, and we understood the doctrine of karma, and we understood how we are bound and so on. So I won't get into it again. It's a very long topic, but I want to point out that when we did the Mangalacharana, the second verse repeated the same thing. It said, Mumukshu nam hitarthaya. So if you're studying Tattva Bodha, your interest is in a freedom of the self. Freedom from what? Freedom from a sense of limitation and freedom from a sense of bondage. And if you want, you can go back to previous classes, and we've spent a lot of time talking about this topic. And then it gets into the details. The student then, of course, immediately asks, what do you mean by nitya nitya vastu vivekaha? And then the teacher answers. Then the student asks, what is viragaha? What is dispassion? And then the teacher explains again, it's the absence of the desire for repeating the same experience again and again and again. Because once you've undergone that experience, you have, if you are paying attention, you have absorbed the essence of that experience, and there's no need for you to repeat it. Or at least you can put it in its proper perspective. Then the student asks, what is sham adi ashtak sampattihi? And then the teacher points out that they are shama, dama, uparama, titiksha, shraddha, and samadhan. And of course, the student asks, what is shama? And the teacher says that it is mano nigraha. And when we did this class, I think this was probably class number 3 or 4, we said that nigraha does not necessarily mean control. Nigraha means understanding the mind. The mind is your friend. The mind is like a child. And just like you would take care of your child, you have to nigraha. See, you have to keep control of the child, right? Or of your pet. You have to take care of it. Nigraha does not mean control. Nigraha really means taking care of it. Taking care of your mind means understanding what it likes, understanding what it wants. Someone may have a mind that likes music. You have to take care of that. You have to provide the mind with musical experiences. Someone may have a mind that likes to read or write, and you have to provide the mind the opportunity to express itself. So it's taking care. Please do not understand that necessarily to mean nigraha. At the same time, you have to prevent the mind from going in directions which would be not productive for it. So that is shamaha. Damaha is chakshu adi bahya indriya nigraha. It's understanding and taking control of how you let the rest of the world into your mind. So chakshuhu is the eyes and other external senses. That's how the world enters into your antakarna. And having some amount of control, having a gatekeeper there that allows things to go in and allows things to go out. So sort of having a security or a privacy filter so that you can govern what enters into your antakarna. Then the student continues and asks, what is uparama? And the teacher answers, it's about taking care of your duties. Swadharma anushtanam eva. It is being able to understand what your duties are and taking care of them. This is very important because if you are not taking care of your duties, you will find yourself in situations where you're forced to take care of your duties. So dharma is, swadharma is very important. For example, if you're a student, your swadharma is taking care of your studies, making sure that your projects and everything get done. If you're not going to do it, then of course you're going to find yourself in a situation where you will be forced, or eventually you will have to let go of that dharma, and then it will have some repercussions for you. Titiksha was the 4th value, and titiksha is being able to undergo variations in experiences without excessively complaining about them. I'm sure you all have friends who excessively have one point or the other bored you with how hot it is or how cold it is. And yes, it is hot, and the complaining is not going to change that experience. So the ability to endure, to understand how the nature is changing around us, that's very important. And then the student asks, what is Shraddha and what does it look like? And the teacher answers that it is not blind faith, but trying to understand the words of the teacher and trying to understand the word of the scriptures. And starting off with the assumption that they may be true. So we are exploring them, but exploring them with a positive attitude rather than a negative attitude. That's Shraddha. And Samadhana is Chit Ekagrata, which means we are being able to focus on the studies. Once we've started something, like we are studying Tattva Bodha, you heard that we've been doing this for 16 sessions and will probably continue for several more. The ability to stay with it, the ability to remain focused on it. We took a short break, but we came back to it. The process of coming back to it is Samadhana, being able to stay with it. And then the last one is Mumukshutvam, and that's where I wish to be free, let me attain moksha. And we've talked about this before, freedom from what, and freedom from a sense of limitation and a sense of bondage. I think you should go back to, if you want to understand more about it, you need to go back to some of the previous lectures where we've spent a lot of time about understanding bondage and understanding freedom. So that's the Adhikaritvam part of the Tattva Bodha. And as part of this, if you look at it, the teacher has talked about Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka, Iham Utrartha Phal Bhoga Viragaha, Sham Adi Ashtak Sampattihi, and Mumukshutvam. 4 of the most important qualifications needed for the student to prepare themselves for the study of Tattva Bodha. But out of these 4, the most important one is number 4, which is Mumukshutvam, a desire for seeking freedom from a sense of limitation, the sense of bondage. Why is it the most important? It is the most important because it will bring you the rest. The rest of it will bring you, because Mumukshutvam will bring you to Tattva Bodha. And as you get into Tattva Bodha, you will be exposed to Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka, and it will sort of start everything else. So that's why I was saying that the process of studying Tattva Bodha and gaining knowledge is like lighting fire in a firewood. And if the firewood, and most firewood are moist and they don't catch fire right away. There are some cases where the firewood is really dry and it will catch fire right away. But in most cases, it's a little bit moist. And the Adhikaritvam is the process of drying out the wood. And what better way to dry it out but to find a spot that's dry and get it lighted. And that's Mumukshutvam. And then it will spread to the rest of it, and eventually you'll have a nice blazing fire. Then the next topic is Atma Tattva Viveka. Now this is really the significant part where we are at. And as part of this, the first thing the student asks is, what is Tattva Viveka? What is it? And the answer is, Atma Satyam Tad Anyat Sarvam Mithya Iti. That's pretty much it. There it is. And that's why I said that the word real and unreal, while we are using that as the translation, they do not cover what we're talking about. They do not cover what we're talking about because the word unreal does not apply to mithya. Why does it not apply to mithya? Because our definition of mithya is very technical. It's a Vedantic definition of mithya. It's the definition of mithya provided to us by our teacher Shankaracharya, to whom it was provided by Sadashiva. And the definition of mithya is that which depends upon something else for its existence or definition becomes mithya. And then what is Atma? Atma is Satyam, that which depends upon nothing else for it, depends on nothing else for it to be illuminated, depends on nothing else for it to be understood or defined. And really we'll talk about Satyam actually is it's much harder to define than Mithya. Satyam is that which is not Mithya. And with the verses that we are at, the student is going to ask, what does it mean to be Satyam? And what the teacher is eventually going to answer is Trikalapi Tishtati iti Satyam, which means that which is present through all experiences equally, and that which does not need anything else for it to be illumined, that is Satyam. And Atma is the only Satyam that's there. Tad Anyat, everything other than that is Mithya. So that is Tattva Viveka. Pretty much, sometimes we call, we use the word sutra, or sometimes we will use, I'm sure you've all heard of Brahma Sutras. They're very short and they're very succinct, but they provide a clear definition of whatever it is that we're talking about. they're also referred to as Mahavakyas. So Tattvamasi is a Mahavakya. Aham Brahmasmi is a Mahavakya. Similarly, Atma Satyam Tad Anyat Sarvamithya iti is a Mahavakya. It is complete in itself. It provides the complete definition. And our purpose in studying Tattva Bodha is to really understand the meaning of that. Simple sutra that conveys everything. What is exactly the meaning of that is what we're trying to understand. And what happens? The student is just like you. He says, okay, if I want to understand it, I need to understand each and every word properly. So he starts off by saying, Atma ka. What is Atma? And then the teacher answers, and that answer is actually where we are at. He says, the teacher says, Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharirat Vyatiriktaha Panchakoshatitaha San Avastha-traya Sakshi Satchidananda Swarupaha San Yas Tishtati Sa. Wow. This is one of the, I would say, I really like Tattva Bodha perhaps because of this one verse. Because it's a little more broadened out, extensive definition of Atma that you will find. Usually they will use sutras and shorter forms of definition. This is the one that gets really into it and explains it properly. So, Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharirat Vyatirikta. So Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira, 3 Shariras, Vyatirikta, other than that. That's the part that we have completed so far. So if you ask us where we are in Tattva Bodha, we have completed the student's understanding of Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharirat Vyatirikta. And where are we? We are about to start Panchakoshatita. So we haven't yet arrived at Panchakoshatita. We are about to start that. Perhaps we'll get there next lecture. But of course, this student immediately asks, okay, so Sthula Sharira Kim, Sukshma Sharira Kim, Karana Sharira Kim, and we spent a good amount of time discussing them. And so I will give you this in the context. We are going to stay in this definition of Atma for a while, because understanding Atma is the essence of Tattva Bodha. Once you, and really speaking, as you know, Atma cannot be understood as an object. I am not talking about an object that has features. I'm not talking about an object that has form. I'm not talking about an object that can be understood or objectified with the eyes, with the ears, with the nose. I'm not talking about an object. Everything else that you have experienced is an object. The table in front of you is an object. You can identify its qualities. You can identify its adjectives. You can identify its functions. Everything you know is an object. Even the abstract object is an object, that which does not have any form. The square root of -1 is an object in your mind. You can objectify it. It has no real correlation in the physical universe, but you can objectify it. You know what it is. The Laplace transform that takes you into another universe, where you have integrated everything with e raised to the power -st, is an object. It's a conceptual object. It's an abstract object, but it is still an object. That which can be objectified with the mind. Atma will never be an object of your mind. The reason is because Atma is the subject objectifying the mind. So, Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharirat, Vyatirikta, other than those 3. So, of course, the student asks, so what is Sthula Sharira? And then we spent some time looking at Sthula Sharira. We talked about the fact that there are many models that you can use. We talked about modeling, because the model can be as complex as you want it to be. And we are not done yet making the model even more complex. If you look at our understanding of the physical universe, we'll keep adding levels of complexity to what the physical world is. But remember, the model only needs to be as complex as you need to answer the fundamental question. See, the model is only as complex as the answer to the question that you're asking. I don't need a very complex model to answer a simple question. And if you think about it, what the teacher said, it is a Sthula Sukshma Karan Sharirat Vyatirikta. It's other than that. So I can spend a lot of time building a super complex model of the Sthula Sharira, at the end to be say, Vyatirikta, it is not that. So in this case, in this Tattva Bodha, which was written thousands of years ago, they have taken what was the most complex model of their time, which may now be very simple. And I request you to replace it with the most complex model that you can imagine. The Sthula Sharira, you can have a circulatory system model, you can have a nervous system model, you can have a matter-based model, you can have a elementary organic model associated with it, you can have a chemical model of the Sthula Sharira. You pick the model that you want. There is no limit to it. Or you build your own model. If you think that you can build a more complex model, go ahead and build it. Because Tattva Bodha is going to tell you it is not that. So this model that is talked about is simple. It's a simple model, but it gets the point across. And what is the model? It says Panchikrit Pancha Mahabhutaihi. So it introduces these Pancha Mahabhutas, which are, earth, air, water, space, and fire, so to speak. So it takes the five Mahabhutas, and these five Mahabhutas, then they split up and they undergo a process of grossification, which is called Panchikrit, where you take half of one element, combine it with 1/8 of the other 4 elements, and you get a grossified form of it. It's a model that they had built in order to understand the physical universe. And that's the model that is being used to talk about Sthula Sharira. So Panchikrit, Pancha Mahabhutehi, taking those 5 Mahabhutehi and doing Panchikritam of them, that gives them the grossified form, Satkarma Janyam, born of Satkarma, good actions. Now the doctrine of karma, we've got a very nice discussion of that on a separate topic. In a separate lecture, you should probably look at it, and there you will perhaps relate to what Satkarma Janyam is. It is born out of past good deeds. Sukha Dukkha Bhoga Yatanam. It is the vehicle for experiencing. The whole idea of a Shariram is experience, whether it is Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, or Karana Sharira. They are there for experience. Experiencing what? Experiencing the universe. And what does the universal experience consist of? It consists of Sukham and Dukkham. Of course, they are simplified. I do want to acknowledge that experiences can be very complex. We're using simple terms to capture them. Right? We're using Sukham, pleasurable, and Dukkham. Of course, there is much more complexity. But you do understand, no matter how complex it is still an experience. It is still a vritti that appears in your mind that makes you feel a certain way in your heart, and perhaps gives you a certain amount of knowledge in your intelligence. It still is an experience. Sukha Dukkha Adi Bhoga Yatanam Shariram. You need the Sthula Sharira for that. Without the Sthula Sharira, there is no experiencing, so to speak, with the external universe. Asti Jayate Vardhate Viparinamat Apakshiyate Vinashyati Iti Shadavikara. There are 6 modifications that it undergoes. It is born, asti, jayate, it grows, vardhate, it changes, viparinimat, it undergoes modifications, apakshiyate, it decays, and vinashyati, it eventually perishes. These are the 6 modifications that are going to occur when you're talking about the Sthula Sharira. So it's a simple model. You can definitely have a more complex model, but no matter how complex your model is, it's not going to modify asti, jayate, vardhate, viparinamate, apakshiyate, vinashyate. That will not change. Yeah? Because it's a simpler model, right? Your complex model is going to have many, many layers of what does asti mean, when exactly does asti occur, and so on. But it will not take away from the simplicity of this model. Because what was the goal of this simple model? The goal was to say, it is not that, vyatirikta. Then the student continues and asks, okay, what is Sukshma Sharira? And we talked about this. This is where the Pancha Mahabhutehi, they do not undergo Panchikritam. So it is a Panchikrit, Pancha Mahabhutehi. Kritam, again, Satkarma Janyam. It is born out of good deeds. Again, Sukha Dukkha Bhog Sadhanam. Absolutely, the Sukshma Sharira is needed for Sukha Dukkha Bhog Sadhanam. I'll give you another example. So when you have a person who is in a coma or unconscious, what is not available is that the Sukshma Sharira is, you could say that the Sukshma Sharira is unconscious because the physical body is functioning. The heart is beating, the blood is circulating, prana is flowing, but the Sukshma Sharira is not available. It is not being able to do its job. It has become damaged one way or the other. And that's why the person is in a coma. That person has a harder time now to have Sukha Dukkha Bhoga Sadhanam because that sadhana, that instrument of Sukha Dukkha Bhoga is not working properly. So that's what the Sukshma Sharira is. It's a Pancha Jnanendriyani. It is the 5 organs of knowledge. Pancha Karmendriyani, 5 organs of action. Pancha Pranadaya, the 5 pranas that we are talking about. Manah cha ekam, buddhi cha ekam, saptadash kalabhihi. So these are the 17 components. Now, of course, there are, as I said, this model is simple. You can have many more complex models. In fact, if we pick a different book, if we pick the Katha Upanishad, it uses an Ekonvish 19 different parts. So this one is using Saptadash, which is 17. And those 17s are the 5 Jnanendriyas, 5 Karmendriyas, and 5 Pranas. That makes it 15. Then he says, Manaha cha ekam, buddhi cha ekam. So those are the 2. And of course, it's a simple model. You can definitely make it more complex and break it up into more parts. You know, we've talked about this before. Manaha, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. We can have many, many, many parts to what we are understanding as the Sukshma Sharira. Here he is using a simpler model. So of course, the student asks, what are these Jnanendriyas? And then the teacher points out that it is Shrotam, Tvak, the ability to touch, Chakshuhu, Rasana, which is the ability to taste, and Ghanam, the ability to smell. These are the 5 Jnanendriyas. These are the 5 senses of being able to interact with the physical universe. And then he goes ahead and points out who are the devatas of these particular senses. Shrotrasya Dig Devata, space, is the presiding deity over sound, which sort of makes sense to us. As I said, you can read a lot into these models. If you wish, you can spend a lot of time understanding the inner implications of these models, or you can say, well, I'll have a better, more complex model about sound. Sound is a very complex entity, as you know. Of course, you can also take a different approach, and you can say that everything is an electromagnetic radiation, and it really comes down to your sensor is tuned to which electromagnetic radiation that you're reading with it. So now it becomes a completely different, a more complex model, more comprehensive model. But yeah, you can do that. You can spend your entire lifetime building more complex model about one thing. Shrota or Tvak or Chakshuhu or Rasana. You can spend your entire lifetime building a more complex model about one thing, only to realize at the end it was other than that. Because Atma is Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharirat Vyatirikta. It is other than that. You have sort of missed the one that you were after by focusing on an attribute of what is mithya. So, Shrotrasya Dig Devata, Tvacho Vayuhu, Chakshusha Surya, Rasnaya Varunaha. Varunaha is the god of the waters, Rasnaya. Ghanasya Ashvinau, this is the Ashwini Kumaras, Iti Jnanendriya Devata. Now, of course, you can read a lot into what these devatas mean, or you can take them at face value that these are the devatas. And we talked about what devatas mean. I won't get into it. It gets pretty, it takes a little bit of time to cover that topic. But in short, devatas are the ones, are the natural laws that are standing behind those particular senses. Devata is the one that shines by itself. So what shines by itself? Intelligence. The intelligence behind the ability of sound is worshipped as Dig Devata. We give it a form and we worship it, but we are worshipping the natural law of the universe that allows sound to travel through space, and for me to have a sensor that can pick up certain of those vibrations and be able to understand that you are speaking to me. That natural law of the universe, that intelligence of the universe is worshipped as Dig Devata. It has no form, but I can give it one. I can give it a form and I can thank for its existence. Because when you don't have the blessings of that particular Devata, there will be no Shrotrasya. You will not be able to hear my voice. It expresses the gratitude and the understanding of how these senses are working. So that's what the Devatas are. They are illuminating them from behind. Rasnayaha Varunaha. Varuna Devata. Varuna Devata is the one that allows us to experience the Rasnaya. Is the natural order of the universe that allows liquids to exist in the form of being a liquid, and for us to have the ability to do so much with these liquids. We cannot live without these liquids, but the intelligence of the universe that creates them and creates the sensors and the jiva that is able to appreciate them, that intelligence is worshipped as Varuna. So Devatas are the intelligence behind the natural orders of the universe that Ishvara has created that makes it possible. Now, I have introduced Ishvara before he makes an appearance. I'm sorry about that. I did that because the word Devata appeared, because Ishvara will make his grand appearance on his own when we get into... See, remember the index that we saw? There are 5 topics. One was Adhikari, the 2 was Tattva Viveka, the 3rd was Jagat Utpatti. That's when Ishvara will make his appearance, and we'll get a chance to... Of course, it will be a very humbling experience to hear about Ishvara, who creates the universe. The teacher continues. He's talked about the Devatas, and so he now talks about what the objects of those natural orders are. So Shrotrasya Vishayaha is Shabda Grahanam, the ability to understand sound, the ability to understand words. Tvacho Vishaya Sparsha Grahanam, it's the ability to experience Sparsha. Chakshusha Vishaya Rupa Grahanam, the ability to see sight, and so on it continues. So we talked about the 5 Jnanendriyas. Now the student says, what are the 5 Pancha Karmendriyas? And the teacher answers, Vak, Pani, Pad, Payu, Upasthana iti Pancha Karmendriyani. And of course, these are, Vak is the ability to speak. It's a great blessing to us that we are able to speak and you are able to understand. Pani, the ability, Pani is the grahyam, is the ability to grasp things with my hands. Padya is the ability to walk. Upayu is Pada, Payu. Upasthani is the genitals, and Payuhu is the ability to remove impurities from the body, from the excreting organizations. These are the 5 karmendriyas. And then he continues with the same format. He says, Vacho Devata Vahni, the fire, the presiding deity of speech is fire. Hasta is Indra. Padaya is Vishnu. Payoho is Mrityaha. And Upasthasya is Prajapati. Iti Karmendriya Devata. As I said, we can spend a lot of time looking at each one of them, what the implications, what the possibilities of them are. Or we can say, I want a more complex model. This is too simple for me. And you can do that too. But please remember, the objective of the model is to let it go. Vacho Vishaya Bhashanam, the Vishaya of Vacha is Bhashanam. Panayor Vishaya Vastu Granam. Padayor Vishaya is Gamanam. Gamanam is to go. And so on. Payor Vishaya is Malatyaga, removal of impurities from the body. And Upasthasya Vishaya, Ananda iti, there is a Ananda, a pleasure associated with it. With the karma associated with, and that's identified as the object of that particular karmendriya. Of course, then the student doesn't stop. The student says Karana Sharirakyam. So remember our definition of Atma, that was that one verse, and we're still in that. Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharirat Vyatirekta. The last was the Karana Sharira. And he asks, what is this Karana Sharira? And we've spent a lot of time talking about the Karana Sharira. It's the hardest to understand. As you can imagine, the complexity of even this simple model, the complexity, the levels of complexity keep increasing as you go from Sthula to Sukshma to Karana Sharira. When we get to Karana Sharira, it's anirvacha. It's not something that can be explained categorically. Categorically means there's no, you will not be able to say, this is it. Well, later on we will come to the conclusion that there is nothing that you can speak anirvacha. The only thing that you can explain, the only thing that can be fully understood, the only thing that can be can't use the word understand. The only thing that is vachya is Atma. Everything else remains anirvachya. Because mithya is anirvachya because it always depends upon something else. So how can I categorically tell you that the blanket is the blanket when I know that the blanket is made up of threads? You see what the problem is? It's anirvachya because it always depends upon something else. That's the definition of mithya. And if it depends upon something else, then how can I categorically say that this is this? Does that make sense? It's anirvachya because it depends upon something else for its proper definition. So anirvachya, anadi, not something that has a beginning. Avidya rupam, that which is born out of ignorance. Sharira dvayasya karanam matram. It is the karana of the other two bodies that we've talked about, the sthula and the sukshma. Swarupa jnanam. So it's ignorant about its own self. Nirvikalpa rupam. It is not something that is has a form like the sthula sharira. Yad asti tad karana sharira. Now, we've spent a lot of time talking about the Karana Sharira. I won't go into it. It takes a lot of time to cover it. We've looked at it from the doctrine of karma. We approached it two ways. We approached it from a understanding of the laws of the universe, that if you have the DNA of a human being, you will become a human being. There is nothing you can do about that, right? So that's what we talked about, the initial programming that is in the DNA. For example, if you plant the seed of a banana tree, the sukshma sharira that will come out of it will be a banana tree. So there is an inherent programming in the seed. Now, if you look at the seed, there is no programming. There's no physical programming in the seed. That programming is conceptual. That programming is intelligence. It is coded within the DNA. Once you plant it, there is nothing that will change. It will come out just like that. Now, I can't tell you whether the bananas will be sweet or not. I cannot tell you whether the banana tree will get infected by a banana bacteria or virus or not. I cannot tell you whether monkeys will come and destroy that tree even before it grows or not. I cannot tell you any of those things. But I can tell you this much, that if you plant a banana tree, the possibilities of having a banana tree are there. There is no possibility of it starting to bear apples. The Karana Sharira within that seed, that programming within it, is that of a banana tree. But what will happen to that tree? Or plant two seeds, one of them will be attacked by an insect and will never grow into full size. I cannot answer that. So we introduced the doctrine of karma in order to understand a little bit better the trajectory, the journey, and the evolution of a human in a given lifetime. And we talked about that. That was a long, we won't get into that discussion again. But that's the Karana Sharira that we're talking about. Two Karana Shariras we looked at. One was an understanding that what is programmed in there is programmed in there. And the other was how its lifetime will evolve, and that's depending upon the doctrine of karma. So it is Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharirat Vyatiriktaha Avastha-traya Sakshi. So the next, So the next one the teacher or the student has chosen to ask is, the student says, Avastha-traya Krim. What are these three avasthas? And what do you mean by avastha? Avastha is an experience. It's a state of experience. It's very simple because it's something that you all know, experience every day. So the teacher says that these three avasthas are Jagrit, Swapna, Sushupti avastha. And I spent maybe 15 minutes in one of those discussions talking about the importance of the Sushupti avastha and the importance of the Swapna avastha. Our modern life has placed so much emphasis on the Jagrat avastha that we have sort of made Sushupti and Swapna avastha to be something that is sort of relegated to the background. We never talk about it. But as you will get to Jagat Utpattihi, the third part, you will realize that Ishvara is telling you to treat all three of them with equal importance, because he has buried the Jagat Utpattihi approach equally in all three. He has buried it, and we are expected to put the pieces together and understand how it was done. So when you ignore the Sushupti Avastha, when you ignore the Swapna Avastha, you are missing a point of what Ishvara has left for us to explore. So we think creation, and we think of creation as it is done in the Jagrata Avastha, which means that you require material external to yourself. You require knowledge which is within yourself, and you need to act on them physically in order to create something. That's how creation is. And we say the creator is distinct from the creation. Whatever you have created will never be you. It will be always an object other than you. That seems to be our understanding of creationism, because we have emphasized the Jagrata Avastha. We have emphasized the Jagrata Avastha because we have senses. Jagrata Avastha ka, Ishvara says, Shrotadi, Jnanendriyani, Shabdadi, Vishayascha Jnayate iti Yatsa Jagrata Avastha. Because we have this whole universe that is there along with our senses that we are able to experience. But Ishvara has buried clues in the other two that we have sort of de-emphasized over the past 50 to 100 years, I would say, maybe 200 years or so. It has always been an interest of the human being to become accomplished in the Jagrata Avastha, when they spend only 1/3 of their time in the Jagrata Avastha. Maybe half when you're a student. Maybe 75% when you're doing your PhD in the Jagrata Avastha. But there is something there in the Sushupti Avastha, because we've talked about the dream analogy before. What is the material that you use to create the mountain in your dream? What is the material that you create, that you use to create yourself in your dream, and me if I appear in your dream? There is a different form of creation that goes on in the Swapna Avastha. And the dissolution of the universe, he has buried that piece of information in the Sushupti Avastha. So Jagrata Avastha ka, the teacher explains that it is the state of experience where you have all the Jnanendriyani, you have the Karmendriyani, and so on, and you're interacting with the universe. And he says, when you identify yourself in that Jagrata Avastha, that identified Jivatma is referred to as Vishwa. So when the Jiva, see, this is it's a classic definition. It's not the name. Vishwa is not the name of it. Ishvara is, the teacher is saying that Sthula Sharira Abhimani, the key word there is Abhimani. The one who has identified with the Sthula Sharira, that Atma, that Jivatma is referred to as Vishwa. Vishwa iti uchyate. So when I am identified completely with this particular physical body, you can say, this is Jivatma in the form of Vishwa. Abhimani. It's the identification. This is it. Then Swapna Avastha ka iti chet, he says, so the teacher answers, says, what is the Swapna Avastha? He says, Jagrat Avasthayam yadrishtam. Whatever you saw in the waking world, yachritam, and you take that and you project all of it in the sleeping world. But you know, we take some liberties when we project it in the sleeping world, right? You may have seen a lot of humans in the waking world, and you may have seen a lot of bulls in the waking world. But when you dream of a man with the horns of a bull, which does not exist. But you've put it together. So you've combined two concepts and created your own man with a set of horns. So it's not just limited to exactly that. There's a lot of freedom in that creation, where you can combine things in random orders to create something else. So Jagrat Avasthayam yadrishtam yachritam, whatever has been heard, tad janit vasanaya, the impressions that have been created by that, nidra samaye, when you are sleeping, yah prapancha, you sort of create that, you project it forward, pratiyate sa swapnavastha, that is the dream state. And Sukshma Sharira Abhimani, identified with that, if I appear in your dream and I ask you, what is this world that you have created? You'll say, it's me. Okay. So Sukshma Sharira Abhimani Atma, Taijasa iti uchyate. So Jivatma identified with the Sukshma Sharira is referred to as Taijasa. Vishwa is Jivatma identified with the Sthula Sharira is Vishwa. And then finally the student asks, okay, then Sushupti Avastha ka is what? And the teacher answers, Aham kimapi na janami. I don't know anything because I am objectifying nothing. The correct translation is not I do not know anything. It's I am objectifying nothing. There is nothing projected in my antahkarana. It's completely dark. Aham kimapi na janami sukhena maya nidra anubhuyat. Iti sushupti avastha. Sukhen, I enjoyed sleep. Nidra avastha. Sukhena, with great peace. You see, you cannot take any of your worries into deep sleep. You will leave that bag behind. Whatever is the baggage that you're carrying, you will have to leave it behind when you go into Sushupti Avastha. Whatever it is. You may be suffering from terminal illness, but when you're in Sushupti Avastha, that baggage is not there with you. And that's why Sukhena Maya Nidra Anubhuya. We've talked more about the Sushupti Avastha. I won't go into too much here, but it's very important for the Jiva's growth, for the Jiva's understanding to go into Sushupti Avastha. And of course, you cannot not go. Ishvara has programmed the Jiva in such a way that within 3 days you will say, oh, I am going to sleep. Because it is Sukhena Maya Nidra Anubhuyat. You will let behind everything else, good, bad, and otherwise, in the Sushupti Avastha. The Karana Sharira Abhimani Atma Pragya iti uchyate. So when the Jivatma has become identified with the Karana Sharira, that is referred to as Pragya. So Jivatma identified with the Sthula Sharira becomes Vishwa. Jivatma identified with the Sukshma Sharira is referred to as Taijasa. And Jivatma identified with the Karana Sharira is referred to as Pragya. And this is where we were exactly located when we finished 16 weeks. Because the student is not done. The student says, Pancha Kosha ke. What are the 5 koshas? If you remember when the teacher introduced Atma, he said, Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharirat Vyatiriktaha, Pancha Kosha Atitaha, Pancha Kosha Atita, Avastha-traya Sakshi. So we are going to meet all of these. We have now arrived at Pancha Kosha Atitaha. So we'll touch upon this for 5 minutes before we end today. So we have introduced the topic for next week. Pancha Kosha Atitaha. So this has actually become misrepresented sometimes. Kosha is translated as a sheet. What is a sheet? It's a cover. So for example, if you are living in an ancient world and you understand the weapon of choice to be the sword, then the sheet is what you put the sword in, right? So you take it out of its cover and there it is. The kosha is the cover. And the teacher said, Pancha Kosha Tita, inside the 5 koshas. So sometimes this has been represented as that there are 5 coverings of Atma, and that you have to remove these coverings one by one by one in order to get to the core, which is Atma. Okay, so if you think about our understanding of Mithya and our understanding of Atma, you do understand that Atma can be covered by nothing. It does not work because Atma is the first principle. So even space does not exist without Atma. So to talk about Atma being covered in time and space by an object, that's not what the teacher is talking about. It is our understanding of it that has been covered. So our understanding of Atma has been covered by Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and Anandamaya Kosha. They're very similar to what we've talked about earlier. The Annamaya Kosha is very similar to Sthula Sharira. The Pranamaya Kosha is very similar to Sthula Sharira. The Manomaya Kosha is very similar to Sukshma Sharira. Vijnanamaya Kosha is again very similar to Sukshma Sharira. And Anandamaya Kosha is very similar to Karana Sharira. So if you look at it, we are getting into a little more detail of what the Sthula Sharira is by understanding it as the Annamaya Kosha and the Pranamaya Kosha. Annamaya Ka, of course, the student will not stop. They will keep asking, so he'll say Annamaya Ka. And so Ishvara will answer that Annaha Senaiva Bhutva Anna Senaiva Vriddhim. So that which is born of food, that which is grown, which grows by food, and then which eventually goes back into the earth and becomes food, is called the Annamaya Kosha. He is referring literally to the physical body. Similarly, he will continue and ask what is Pranamaya, and then we'll talk about the 5 pranas: Prana, Apana, Udana, Samana, and I missed one. The 5 pranas we will talk about: respiration, digestion, circulation, and so on. So he'll get into more detail of these Pancha Kosha, but I want to address the topic of Pancha Kosha Titaha first. Sometimes it is understood that Atma is hidden by these 5 koshas. So then the mental understanding is Atma is some object, and then these 5 sheets are covering it. Well, I want to be very clear about that. Atma is even before space. The idea of it being covered does not even apply. It's beyond space and beyond time. And I don't mean that in an abstract sense. I mean it in a sense that we will understand what it means that Atma is beyond space. We need to get to the bottom of it. It is not an imaginary object, because if you understand Atma to be some imaginary object, then we've missed the boat completely. Because Atma is the subject, the one that cannot be covered by anything, because it is the basis of everything. It is the subject. So our journey of trying to understand Atma, because that was that long definition that the teacher gave, what was it, section number 9, is still continuing. We're not quite done yet. We have arrived at Atma Kaha. So we've spent all this time looking at the first word, Sthula Sukshma Karan Sharirat Gyatiriktaha, and we've now arrived at the second one, Pancha Kosha Tita. Avastha-traya Sakshi, and then finally we will arrive at Satchidananda Swarupa. Yastisthati Sa Atma. Savigneya. That is the one to be known. So that is the topic of Tattva Bodha. I think what I'll do is I will pause for a moment so that we can have some question and answer, and then we will end with the Shanti. If you don't mind, I'll grab my charger because my computer is complaining that it doesn't have enough battery. So yeah, you can mute me and I will listen.
Anybody have any questions or?
Yeah, I have a question. Hello.
Yeah.
Professor, am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you, Professor.
Yes, I can hear you. I just muted myself for a second.
Okay. Yeah, just this question, the last thing, when you talked about the next topic we are going to do is, so can you just repeat the verse of that, or show the verse in the slides here?
Pancha Kosha Tita, yeah.
So Annamaya Kosha is you said it's about the body, right? The body will grow and go back into and dissolve in this universe. And then Pranamaya Kosha is all about our pranas, the 5 pranas. Yeah. What is the Manomaya Kosha?
So Manomaya Kosha, it's coming next. It will be Manascha Jnanendriya Panchakam Militva Bhavati Sa Manomaya. So it will be the Mana, the Antakarna, along with the 5 Jnanendriyas. So the difference between Manomaya and Vijnanamaya Kosha is something that we will talk about. Vijnanamaya Kosha in particular is about Buddhi. So one is manas and the other is buddhi. Remember, we've talked about the model of the human mind in accordance with Vedantic principles. We talked about manaha, buddhihi, chitta, and ahankara. So manaha is where you are working with the senses, but you do not have significant control over them. So for example, when your eyes are open, whatever is the object in front of you, you will see it. There's nothing you can do about it. And when you are faced with an event that is very, very sorrowful, you will feel sorrow. There's nothing you can do about it. So the perceiving and the feeling mind is manomaya kosha, and the thinking, objectifying, decision-making mind is the vijnana. But we will look at it in more detail when we get there.
Thank you.
Professor, I have one question.
Yeah.
What happens to the Atma in the Sushupti, in the deep sleep state?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question is, what happens to the Atma in the Sushupti state? And the answer to that is actually nothing happens to the Atma. Nothing can happen to the Atma. In fact, the Atma is the only one that is there in the Sushupti state. The mind and the Antakarana are switched off. So your mind, your Vijnanamaya Kosha, or the way we just talked about it, your Manas, your Buddhi, your Chitta is working in the Sapna Avastha, but even that goes away. Ahankara is definitely gone. So your mind is sort of gone. But Atma, of course, is Trikalapi Tishtati. That's the one that remains. Does that make sense? So nothing happens to Atma. Nothing can happen to Atma.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So does this work, this online way of communication for now?
Yeah.
Yeah, this works for me. Yeah.
Yes, sir, it works.
And it gives us a little more flexibility in terms of time and space, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is very convenient and it's also easy. People can join by phone, video, any way they want, and then recording is also very easy with this. So,
it'll be interesting to see if we can ever conduct a meditation using this. We'll try it. When we get to Manmaya Kosha, we'll try it.
yeah. And also another benefit of this is we can easily ask other chapters to join us.
Yes.
Maybe when we are at when the semester begins, so we can do it at a class in Purdue. People at
Right.
Purdue can join there, and then we can do a conference call for others if
Yeah,
the others
absolutely.
are interested. That is one way I was thinking.
So did we get a good summary of where we are? We have sort of covered the bases and sort of established where we are in the study of Tattva Bodha. Apparently, we've not made a whole lot of progress. we have a long ways to go, but as I said, there is nowhere to go but inside. So this should be a great journey.
Yeah. If anyone wants to share anything else, any experience, so then.
Sir, I have one more
So the
thing.
next class will be like the next Saturday, or is not decided?
I like this time. Is everybody okay with this time?
Yeah,
Yeah, this is fine.
Okay, I will try for this. I will confirm. What happens is we have some obligations, but usually I will try to keep this time. And even if that means that I have to go to my lab to conduct it from there, I will try to do that. So Saturday at 10. Next week is what date? 24th. Saturday the 24th. So that's what I would target. And I will send a confirmation latest by Wednesday, so you all know that. 99% it should be no problem. But there's always a 1% chance that there may be something that will prevent it.
Someone had a question.
Yes, sir, I have one more question. Then you said nothing happens to Atma, right? Then how are we able to get back all the previous impressions from the mind when we come back to the Jagrata state after the Sushupti?
So it's only the mind that wakes up.
Okay.
So everything is, okay, so let me put it this way. So we have a fourfold model of the Antakarana, where we have the Manas, the Buddhi, the Chitta and the Ahankara. Normally, in a normal state, your Chitta is occupying about 80% of your mind because it's all of your past impressions, memories and so on. Some of it are buried deep in the Chitta, some of it are bubbling up to the surface. Sometimes you see something and you're reminded of an old memory and it just bubbles up from the Chitta up to the top. But your Manas is the perceiving, feeling mind that is present in any given waking state and also present during your Swapnavastha. And then the Buddhi is the ability to think about it, launch trains of thought, take them to their logical conclusion and to make a firm decision that this is the way it is. For example, you can say that this shirt is black. I know it because I have looked at it. I understand the meaning of the word black. Now you can become very complex about what you mean by the word black. In your Buddhi, you can analyze, okay, if it is absorbing radiation, that's the meaning of the word black, and therefore this is black. Or you can say that this is absorbing visible radiation. So Buddhi can provide a very refined understanding of it. But when you are in the Sushupti state, the Buddhi is gone because it is shut down. The Manas is also shut down, and everything is sort of buried into the Chitta. Right? And the Chitta itself is also not illuminated anymore. Right? So when you go into the Swapnavastha, that's before Sushupti, when you go into the Swapnavastha, there are some thoughts and some vrittis that bubble up that are based on some combinations of what you saw in the Jagrata. Something comes up and your mind objectifies it and you have the experience of speech. And then even that dissolves back into the Chitta, in the ocean of Chitta that you have, which is the ocean of memory, so to speak. And then you are in the deep state. And then as you wake up, your projections, I called it last time I spoke to someone, I said I call it the Big Bang. In your Antakarana, there's a Big Bang and poof, everything sort of opens up. In fact, I told you right earlier that Ishvara has hidden all the secrets in our own experience. The Big Bang is hidden. Every morning you wake up, there is a Big Bang. It just floods the entire universe, your Antakarana universe. I'm not talking about the real physical universe. I'm talking about the Antakarana universe. Everything starts poof. In one instant in time, everything sort of makes an appearance. And some things do make better appearances because you'll say, oh, I got to check my email. Did I get any messages last night? So that will be the first thought that comes into your mind. But that whole process, I refer to it as the Big Bang. It's the Big Bang of the creation of the Jivatma's Antakarana, populated with everything that was sitting buried down deep into the Chitta. Atma has nothing in this. Atma is illuminating it all equally.
Yeah.
So, Professor, one thing, can we get a PDF of this?
Yeah, I sent you the link on WhatsApp.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Way back when, in fact, I downloaded it from there again. I'll show you the website so you can download it too. It was right here in the WhatsApp group. I had sent it on April 21.
Okay, I'll find that.
Namaste, Professor. This is Ankit from Iowa State.
Yeah.
I don't have any question as of now, but I just loved it and very lot of benefit. I think I'll have more questions next time.
Sure, of course.
Because I'll just sink in and a little bit contemplate over it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Akshay can send you some of the older materials and so on.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So, Ankitji, we have all the recordings of the previous lectures. And
Okay.
It's on our Google Drive. It's a publicly shared video. I
Yes,
can
just share it with me.
So I'll send you that. And Yeah, and I was about to ask you one more thing, like as in you joined for the first time from some other chapter to our discussion. Anything else you would like to suggest?
No, it's working very nice. The technology and the way we're doing it, it's amazing. It's just a lot of things to catch up, but yeah, I think because I'm reading it second time, so I'm a little bit familiar with the terms and all. But still, some of the things they're very power packed. So I'll contemplate over it and then ask questions in the next few sessions. But it's wonderfully taken. So just loved it.
Okay, so should we end, Professor, now?
Yeah, we can do that. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate Om Shanti Shanti.
Namaste.
No.